everyone, Margo here from Indie Birth. I'm gonna wait a couple minutes before I jump into my topic, just to get everyone a chance to hop on if they're wanting to. I was chatting with wonderful Stephanie Dawn, who helps us out with our sacred business stuff, me and Marin. And we were talking about Facebook Live and the best way to do it and all that good stuff. And so she gave me some helpful hints, one of which was waiting for people before diving in. The other of which was to introduce myself in case there's people watching now or in the future who are just learning about us and what we do over at Indie Birth. So, again, my name is Margo, and I am a traditional birth attendant, and I work with Indie Birth and Marin of Indie Birth on lots of different projects and lots of different, maybe not lots of different, but some big and major goals around birth and midwifery, and we have sort of a unique perspective in the birth world and are really focused on returning, and that's not even quite the right word that I'm looking for, but helping women remember their power and their inherent ability to birth their babies. And helping create more birth keepers, more midwives, more traditional birth attendants, whatever you want to call yourself or us folks who are doing this work. Create more of those people who are willing to let parents, pregnant people, take that power and reclaim it and utilize it to its fullest extent. So, it looks like we have someone on. Kate, you're always such an excellent A+ Facebook Live attendee. If there's anything weird going on with my microphone, let me know. I am using my backup phone because I fell in a creek last week with my usual phone, and my backup phone is very cracked and weird, and I'm surprised it's even letting me do this. So, alright, now we've got some people on. So, I'm going to be talking to you about all the different ways that you can sort of dive in wherever you're at with changing birth in your community. There's no prescription. I'm not going to tell you, like, this is how you do it, ABC, because every community is different, and every community should be looked at as an individual, unique entity that it is. So I met for tea the other day with a really lovely woman who expressed interest in helping me out as I set up my practice here in Duluth. I got to go to my first birth as the Duluth midwife this week. I'm not officially taking clients, but I had a special circumstance and was happy to help out, and it was really super fun. The lovely person who assisted me was someone I've only met once, and was someone who hasn't done much assisting in the past, and she did great, but you know, I'm thinking about how can I create a sort of tribe of awesome birth helpers of every variety and every interest level around me here in this community that is new to me. So, again, I met with this lovely woman over tea the other day, boba tea, my favorite, delicious, and I had put out a call just saying, hey, I want some helpers, and just sort of seeing what kind of response I'd get, because this is all kind of new to me too. So we had this really great conversation. She told me a little bit about her background with birth and her interest level and where she's at, and asked some really great questions. What's the difference between being a nurse midwife versus non-nurse midwives? What if I want to be a doula? And I would give anyone listening the same advice, which is start out by reading everything you can get your hands on. So we have a great recommended resource list on our site. If you go to indiebirth.com and look under, I believe, the free resources tab, don't quote me on that, there should be a page that says recommended resources and supplies. and we have a long list of books that we like to recommend. The first book that I recommend, and that I recommended to this person in particular, and would recommend to anybody, is Gentle Birth, Gentle Mothering by Sarah Buckley. It's just really comprehensive and fabulous, and a great foundational starting point, I think, to having these conversations with friends, family. Having a couple copies to loan out is great. It's really non-confrontational, really scientific, but also really blends in that intuitive piece that we think is really important here in Indie Birth too. So I said, check out this book. I also suggested the work of Dr. Michel Odant. Really excellent information that he's got out there too. Any of his books are fabulous. And those are sort of the foundational pieces of our beginning learning, which is the 5-week How to Have an Indie Birth course, which is a great online course and something that we also do locally. Marin does in Arizona, and I do in Minnesota now. So that was my suggestion was to sort of dive into beginning learning. We talked about, and I've talked about on other Facebook Lives, what do we think about doulas and certifications and that sort of thing. I think if someone has the basic beginning foundational knowledge that we would want any parent to have, which is our 5-week class, but you can obviously get this information in other ways too. We've just made it really easy and curated information and some birth videos for you and have a great community to talk amongst. Where was I going with that? Anyone who has that foundational information and has the right intention and the right personality, I think, is part of it too, I think would be a fabulous doula. I haven't been super impressed with the quality of education that comes out of some of the, weekend doula courses, and maybe it depends on the trainer, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to really speak to that. I'm just saying I think that there's a lot of emphasis on getting a certification when I don't think that's necessarily super important. I think there's other ways to get that information and education, and having that foundation level is fabulous and is plenty in my book. That's the information I would also want someone to have if they were going to be my birth assistant or my apprentice, for example. So that was my suggestion to her, was start there. Everyone should start there if they haven't already been exploring these ideas for a while. So that's that piece of it. I also think that we need just more education, more community education opportunities wherever it is that we are. So even if there are 5 people offering childbirth education in your community, I think it's a fabulous idea for more people to be offering more variety. We have been toying with and experimenting with and tweaking a 1-day workshop model. We're going to be talking about it at the post-conference in March of 2017 and giving participants essentially the curriculum and the thing that we are teaching in these workshops, the videos, how we do it, how we pace it, how we set them up. That's one model. There's a million other ideas, though. There's obviously 8-week classes or 10-week classes. There's our 5-week class model. There are lots of different ways to do it, is what I'm saying. We've really been enjoying doing the 1-day workshop model, especially when someone offers to host it in their home and just asks all of their friends to come on over, whether or not they're planning to have a baby. We don't care. We think this information needs to be in everybody's hands, regardless of where they're at in their childbearing years. Some of the most fabulous conversations we've had have come out of some of these in-home group meetings where there's lots of older women who, have even gone through menopause and are just reflecting back on their birth experiences, and then are going back to talk to their daughters about these issues, or sharing with other friends in their circle, sharing with their churches, sharing with their whatever it is that network that they have. So my encouragement would be to, once you feel like you have this information, either find a way to teach what you think is most important, or find someone else's curriculum they've already made to offer that up to your community, because we need more people teaching. I think the other piece with our 1-day workshop model that's interesting is that we're doing it for free. and it might not always stay that way, but so far it's been really great in getting people to come who, obviously, it makes it more accessible, and it makes it be less of a time commitment, at least it feels that way on our end, to commit to 6 or 7 hours, and just doing it all in one shot, getting everybody in the same room, not worrying about people coming back the next week, because I don't know if we've experimented necessarily with doing a free 5-week class, but it seems like when that happens, people sort of drop off here and there. So getting everyone in the same room and doing it all in one shot feels really good, gets interesting new people into the group, and oftentimes they'll say, hey, can I host this at my house in a month or two, and I'll invite all my friends. So, my background is in women's and gender studies, and it's a lot like what we talk about when we talk about, like, in the 60s, 70s, the consciousness raising circles where women would get together in their homes and talk about these issues. We're just focusing on birth this time. Oh, in this era. Sorry, I was squatting here outside my house in the rain because my husband is remodeling inside. So, had to stand up and shake the legs out. So, okay, we've talked a little bit about being a doula. We've talked about offering education to your community. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to say about that part. If you don't feel like you're ready necessarily to teach, I would just suggest finding someone nearby who does feel ready and asking if you can shadow with them a time or two and seeing where the gaps are in your knowledge and your skill set, if you need to sort of practice your public speaking or whatever that looks like. And just pursue that because it's huge. It's also great advertising if you are already a doula or a midwife. To host either free or not free childbirth education, get people in the class and talk about your philosophy and the science, and people usually leave, and usually there's a person or two who says, hey, I'd really like to interview you because that was great and that's what I'm looking for. And there's certainly people who don't say that and disappear at lunchtime and don't come back, which is fine too, but yeah, so if people have questions about that, I'd love to hear them. And I can see them here as we're going. It's very cold out here. All of a sudden my hands are like icicles. Good old Minnesota. So the other piece is then, that I talked with this person about last week, either assisting midwives or apprenticing or somewhere in between. So we get a lot of questions about this, and we have, obviously our school in the works. We have our skills workshop coming up in November 11th through 14th. We have our second Indie Birth Midwifery Skills Workshop. And so we have some really great resources for people who are wanting these skills and wanting to get started. So a lot of people ask, am I ready for an apprenticeship? Am I going to be useful at a birth? And again, I go back to, if you have a solid understanding of physiological birth, what it looks like. Okay, it looks like I've reconnected. Sorry about that. We get a lot of people who are concerned that they're not going to be useful, essentially. And again, I was recently at a birth with someone who hasn't assisted really before. And she said, you're going to have to tell me what to do. And I said, that's fine. Even if you knew what you were doing, I'd probably tell you what to do, because that's my personality. But where was I going with this? So having a solid foundation in physiological birth is number one. Number two is, if you really are feeling concerned and wondering if you'll be helpful or not, then I would suggest, either checking out our reading list, send us an email if you have a specific question. We're always super approachable and happy to send you some book recommendations, as far as, skills go and that sort of thing. And then if you really want to get some hands-on learning and you want to do that before diving into an apprenticeship, or if you're already in an apprenticeship but really would love some more practice and more confidence, our skills workshop would be fabulous for you. It's something that would have been really beneficial for me personally with my personality, which is why I, pushed so hard and was like, hey, Maren, we really have to do this. It's something that is going to benefit a lot of people. So take advantage if you're able to. We have some scholarships that are available for the next couple days. You can apply. Just scroll down on the Indie Birth page and you can find it. It's also on the indiebirth.com/workshop page. If you go to the bottom and click on it, you can apply for a partial or a full scholarship. There's a few days left to do that. So, yeah, and we talked about this a lot at the workshop that we did in June, just that it seems like a lot of the people who are into what we're doing over at Indie Birth are sort of the kind of people who are often underconfident. They're really, really, really smart people, smart women who really do know more than they think they do, and the biggest thing we want to help do is shine that light back on you all who are interested in these things, the same way that we're doing with birthing parents, birthing women, and say, hey, look how powerful you are, look how smart you are, look how ready you are, and how capable you are already, and let's help each other figure out where you can fine-tune that and make sure you fit into your community in the most effective way possible. So, where else was I going with this? You know, that's kind of talking about getting to the point of apprenticing, or maybe you are apprenticing. And then I would just say, you know, for becoming a midwife, becoming a traditional birth attendant, just would, again, plug the school that we're developing, and we'll be starting in 2017. July of 2017 is when we will be beginning our first cohort or class of students. And we are really interested in these conversations around how do we become midwives? How do we do this in a world where there is so much regulation, there are so many letters, there are so many certifications, and how do we navigate that, especially when those aren't things we necessarily buy into or believe? And right now our answer is this school and apprenticeship, which is the traditional gold standard way to become a midwife. What else was I going to say? So any questions people have, I'd be happy to answer. I just want to see more of these amazing people that we get questions from, just going for it, if that makes sense. Not waiting until you have the absolute perfect course. Not being afraid to just have people over to your house for snacks and to chat about this or watch a birth movie. Or even just videos on YouTube. It doesn't even have to be that fancy. So it's a lot like, you know, the idea, I'm sure people have seen the post that goes around now and then on Facebook about hosting a crappy dinner, or how to host a crappy dinner, and how if we all would just kind of loosen the reins on ourselves a little bit, we'd see each other more, we'd have like richer communities and richer friendships if we didn't feel like we had to clean the house perfectly before having people over for dinner. It's the same kind of concept. Because, again, like I said, we get these questions from people who obviously know what they're talking about and obviously have a lot to offer their communities, and they're still holding back for whatever reason, whether it's they don't have their certification, they don't think they have enough births under their belt yet to be talking about these things, whatever it is. I guess I'm just here to say you are enough, you already have such amazing things to offer, and to just begin offering them in whatever way you have the energy to do, and start experimenting, because we need a revolution. And the only way that that's going to happen is if all of us sort of put our best foot forward and, you know, give ourselves room to make mistakes and experiment and have fun with it. So, that said, I just recently, you know, sometimes it starts with, it depends where you're at, but I already have what I like to talk about in my workshops. So my first piece was I need to figure out where I'm going to do this. And so that was sort of my homework the last little while, is what kind of venue can I find to do this in? Like I said, you can always do sort of this simple, oh, I love you too, Kara. You can always do these simple friendship sort of circles, in-home sort of informal meetups. I found a space that fit a lot more people, just in case there are more people, we'll see. But sometimes that's the hardest part, is figuring out what you're going to talk about. I'll start putting fingers on what you're going to talk about, and where you're going to talk about it. Facebook obviously is a wonderful tool that we use a lot for getting people to come to these things. And like I said, if you have questions about how to make this happen, just feel free to email and we'll give you our best advice. And if enough people ask, I'm sure we'll start putting together more articles and handouts and that sort of thing. I'm sure I have a blog post out there along these lines from around a year ago or so as well. Maybe I'll post it here in the comments afterwards. But so I guess with that, if no one has any questions, I guess I was going to tell you, once I found my place where they said I can use their space, I said, cool, I want a Saturday in October and I want a Saturday in December. And if it works out there, I'm probably going to ask, can I do this every 2 months? And I'm also going to look for another location, because sometimes the location can definitely impact who makes it out. So some people won't come to something that's in someone's house. Some people won't go to something if it's at a church. Some people won't go to something if it's, in a certain part of town. I mean, there's so many variables that I think changing it up is smart. So that's kind of my approach right now, and I think it's worth mentioning just as I am trying to build my community here. So if you're out there trying to do the same thing, that's my suggestion, is to just start getting people together to talk about these things and be consistent about it. And if something's not working, try something else, and don't burn yourself out trying to make something work that isn't necessarily working. But there is something to be said for consistency. So yeah, that's about all there is that I wanted to share today. Doesn't look like there's any questions. Looks like someone just joined just now, so sorry if you missed up till now, but this recording will be up, I think it's usually within about 24 hours, and then you can hear me chat outside on my porch in the rain anytime you want. So thanks for hanging out and joining me this afternoon, and again, feel free to email us. My email is margo@indiebirth.com. Marin is marin@indiebirth.com. Not too hard to remember. Again, just a plug for our workshop that's coming up in November. If you, in the next couple days, there are some opportunities for scholarships. So indiebirth.com/workshop. Down at the bottom of the page, you can look at you can click on a link to get the application for that. And again, our school is coming out in 2017, and there'll be lots more information as we launch that and have lots of fun information and media that you can check out about it. So that'll be in the next month or two here as we wind down in 2016. Crazy! All right, thanks everyone.